my fellow DAB members and just will appreciate your grace as I learn the ropes in this new role as chair. So I think what we do is quick introductions of all of the DAB members. And I know Becky has had kind of a running expectation for us to share one thing that you love about Wichita. I'm going to shake it up a little bit. And this time I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, say what neighborhood or HOA that you represent, and then just one thing that you're looking forward to in 2021, since I didn't have a chance to be a part of the January meeting. So I'll start. Dee Neiswanger. I'm representing the Whispering Lakes Estates Homeowners Association. And I am very much looking forward to spending more time with my grandson and granddaughter face to face so that I can give lots of hugs and snuggles. So that's what I'm looking forward to this year. And we'll just kind of popcorn from there. So I'll call out on somebody, and after you've introduced yourself, call on somebody else, and we'll just get everybody introduced. So Sam, how about you? Would you like to go next?
Oh, I'm ready. And I'm Sam Lindeman. I represent Bonnie Brae Homeowners District, which is just east of Town East. And what am I looking for? Is spring. That's it.
All right. Sam, do you want to call on one of our other members?
I'll just get Corey. He's next to me in my picture here. So I'll just.
I'm Corey Buckta. I'm the Community Services Representative for District 2. And the thing that I'm looking forward to most in 2021 is just sitting down at a restaurant with other people that I have missed seeing for a long time. I'm hoping that that's coming, maybe by the summer. And I will have Nancy go next. You're right next to me. I like that method, Sam.
All right, I'm Nancy Loosely. I represent Hartmore. And I'd say something I'm hoping can happen sometime this year is to get back into traveling a little bit. Why short trips are there, it'd be nice to get a little bit further. So I'm hoping at some point that can happen this year. I'm gonna popcorn. Let's go Tim, get him introduced.
Thank you. I'm Tim Johnson. I represent the Willow Bend neighborhood. And my answer to your question, what am I looking forward to, would have been different a couple of days ago, but now that it is utterly Arctic out there, I'm looking forward to getting back on my motorcycle.
So Tim, for your benefit, I'll call on Chris. How's that?
That'd be great.
All right, thanks, Dee. Chris Broderick, representing Northbrook Homeowners Association. And something I'm looking forward to is selfishly my daughter's senior year, her swim season. So that was canceled last spring. She wasn't able to have a high school swim season. And so looking to hope to see a few swim meets at Heights this year. And I will pass it to Faith.
Faith Martin. I represent East Ridge, which is just south of Town East. And I am looking forward to, if the fates allow, using the Maroon 5 tickets we bought in 2019, which have been postponed 4 times. But, you know, if July doesn't happen, then we'll go whenever they postpone it again. But I've been looking forward to that for a very long time. So we'll see.
Faith, who are you going to call on?
Nazir.
Thank you. My name is Nazir Jasri. East Kellogg Business is. I'm looking forward to go do some RVing before we get busy. Officer Manny, you're up.
I'm Officer Manny Thompson out of Patrol East Community Policing. Guess I'm looking forward to maybe doing some traveling with the wife this summer. We get Officer Burnett.
Hey, how are you guys doing? I'm Officer Chad Burnett. I'm filling in for Ryan Schneider. He's in bomb training for the past like 2 months. So he should be back with you guys in March, going full force here with you anyway. And besides Manny not getting his whole head because it's too big to get into the screen here, the one thing I'm looking forward to the most is going to be actually going on a date with my wife where we can go somewhere besides a restaurant or somewhere we can actually go out and do something, because I think we've used and abused Netflix to no extent here at the house anyway. So. And I don't have anybody else on my screen unless there's somebody that I'm missing.
Well, let's go back to the DAB members. Tyler, how about you?
Yes, Tyler York, representing Sierra Hills Homeowners Association. Just because it was closed today, I am looking forward to getting back to Sedgwick County Zoo, of which my wife and I are members of.
Okay, who haven't we heard from?
Steve.
Thank you.
Steve Lebeda. I represent North Rock, and I'm looking forward on behalf of my children and wife for school to resume to normal.
Whatever normal looks like in our new way of living and navigating this world. Did I miss any other DAB members? Awesome. Thank you guys for playing along with me. And I think we're ready to move into the formal part of the agenda. So I think we need a motion to approve the agenda for today.
I so move.
Okay, Faith, can we get a second?
I'll second. Ms. Nancy.
Thanks. Thank you, Nancy. All those in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. All right. We also have the minutes from the January meeting to approve. I think Corey sent those out in advance of the meeting. So I was not present at the meeting, so I cannot attest to the accuracy, but if someone will make a motion.
I will make a motion. Ms. Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy. A second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Sam. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign?
Abstain. I wasn't in either.
Okay,
Another abstention here too.
okay. Any other abstentions besides Nazir, Tyler, and myself? Tim, who is new and was not a part of that meeting. All right, thank you guys. Okay, so moving on to the agenda, I think we have we don't have any scheduled public agenda items. Any off agenda items that need to be addressed? Okay, hearing none, we will go ahead and move then to updates, issues, and reports.
If I can just jump in, Dee, I'll
Yep.
take an opportunity just to say a few things. I didn't get to say what I was excited about, so I'm going to give you two. Never have I been so excited to attend a planning meeting in my life, but for the last couple of weeks, City Public Works and Public Works and Utilities, the engineering department, we've had some meetings to talk about finally getting to have a dedication ceremony for the Red Bud Trail right off Founder Circle. So we went with communications and engineering and got to look and see where we're going to do it. And right now it's tentatively scheduled for June, and we're going to do it on a Saturday and have a little informal walk and work with community partners to make that happen. So more to come, but it's just fun to start thinking about bringing people back together, hopefully in a safe environment. And then also our beautiful multi-sports complex Striker. We've never got to have a full dedication and ribbon cutting for that just because of some issues and then COVID. And so have been planning for that and had call on Friday with the Secretary of Commerce, Lieutenant Governor David Tolan, because STAR bonds were utilized to develop that beautiful area. And so hopefully we'll be doing that in June as well. So looking forward to, I'm not saying the new normal, I keep saying the next normal, but just getting to plan some in-person events. So we'll make sure you keep you updated, but lots of great things going on in City Council, lots of progress being made in our community. And again, just an honor to serve. Thank you, Dee.
Yeah, thank you, Becky. That's exciting. It will be nice to get together and celebrate at some point. So any other updates, issues, or reports before we move on to staff reports? Not hearing any. I think we'll go ahead and move to our staff reports. So fire department report. Do we have someone to do that for us today? I'm not hearing anybody. Corey, do you have anything from fire?
I did not hear from fire.
Okay.
They must
Let's
be busy
move.
tonight.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go ahead and move to community police report then.
Manny, if you're okay, I'm going to go first. Just because I know he's probably got a lot more to talk to you guys about than I'm kind of piecing in here anyway. The main thing that Schneider wanted me to bring up to you guys, we have had kind of an increase in car burglaries or car break-ins, especially over the past 2 weeks. And that's centered in 2 places around the area. The North YMCA up there near 3300 block North Woodlawn, and then going south past 29th too in the residential area. The North Woodlawn one has been more of a targeting, oddly enough, females that have been walking in because they're leaving items in their car, and they're watching them in the parking lot as they go in, and they're actually breaking the windows of the car going in there. We have picked up a suspect vehicle. We have a tag, so we are in the process of pursuing that information that's come in. The YMCA has been working great with us on that as well. But we have seen an increase in car burglaries going on there around the 29th and Woodlawn, 29th and Rock area here as well. And we're advising everybody the same thing. Just make sure you keep your doors locked at all times, because if anybody has a Ring or a Nextdoor app, I'm sure you see it all the time of kids running around trying door handles. And that is the thing right now. And they're not just looking for one. A lot of people are carrying weapons now, and they're carrying guns. So they are storing those in their vehicles. So that is one thing that they are looking for, is the weapons. And they're also looking for a lot of information in regards to people. So they're not making the calls to 911 because they say, yeah, my car was broken into last night because I left my door unlocked. It was just rummaged through, but nothing was gone. What they don't understand is a lot of people are, if they can get some information from you with a name and an address, then they have ways of developing stuff to be sent to your house, to be mailed to your house, and pick up that mail at a later date and time, or to establish certain information with other credit card companies to utilize your information. So just, if you do, we're telling everybody to make sure you're making these reports with us or with Case Desk, at least so we know that it's going on in the area. But just to make sure you keep everything out of sight and keep your doors locked is the main thing. Community policing up north, our team this past weekend did a little event, and this was over the entire North Bureau, just picking up. We had some complaints going through MABCD in regards to tires being dumped all over town, and we ended up picking up, I think, over 365 tires totaling like 18,000 pounds on Saturday. So we tried to do a little tire cleanup to kind of help MABCD, because I know that they're way backed up with a lot of stuff that they're dealing with right now as well. And lastly, warming up cars. I think that's probably been preached to no extent. Just make sure that, you know, if you don't have the automatic startup, that you either sit there at the window and watch your car the entire time you're warming it up during these cold days, or suck it up and sit in there and just enjoy some tunes while you're freezing in the car. So, but we did do a special assignment at K96 and Rock last Thursday in regards to texting and driving. We stayed out there from 1 o'clock until 2 p.m. It was just the community policing North team, and we ended up having 12 stops, issued 9 citations for texting and driving up there in the area, because that is still the #1 accident intersection here in Wichita. So other than that, unless anybody's got anything for me, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Officer Manny.
Yep, Officer Manny Thompson. I'm gonna piggyback off Officer Burnett. So on the Patrol East area, in District 2, let's see, burglaries and auto larcenies, auto accessories are up year to date from last year. Burglaries are going to be mainly attributed to burglary to non-residents. Going to be detached garage, storage facilities, and stuff like that. The larceny to autos, specifically auto accessories, is going to be primarily catalytic converters. And then second to that, from what I'm seeing, is handicap tags and placards that are on the tag part. We've been sending out some information because a lot of the catalytic converter thefts are occurring at the apartment complexes, Patrol East Side and District 2. Just advising people, they have gadgets that you can put on the catalytic converters to make it to where it's very difficult to cut them off. They have bolt cutoffs, parking your cars in well-lit areas. But you're not going to see this issue too often in residential areas because usually people are parking their cars in garages. When it comes to the license tags, it'll be hit or miss on if we're able to solve those. We usually need an eyewitness or some kind of security camera footage that can catch a tag or make and model a decent shot of a car. But they sell anti-theft fasteners for those license tags. But like I said, it's some reason they're taking tags that are handicap tags. We've been, in order to kind of combat these two crimes, we've been doing a lot of hotel motel interdiction. And a lot of people that we come in contact with and we make arrests off those car stops. Sometimes they're stolen cars with stolen plates. A lot of times these are going to be the people that are participating in stealing those catalytic converters and license tags and things out of people's cars. I don't know if you've all heard of it, but we have the Flock system, which is connected to the FBI's NCIC. And if you haven't, I can explain it. Just let me know. But as of last week, we've recovered $1.3 million worth of stolen vehicles and tags and items, 115 vehicles to be exact. We've made approximately 120 arrests, mostly with drug arrests and warrants. And as of today, got an email from Lieutenant Slaughter advising that the city manager, so those stats that I just read off to you, those are just for 3 months. So we'll be utilizing the Flock system for another year, and they're going to add a couple more LPRs to the Patrol North and Patrol East area. They're placed in areas related to crime statistics. So that's how they're placed. And like I said, if you have any questions about how the Flock system is run, just let me know. I know the CP officers have been bringing it up in these DAB meetings since we got them. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, that's all I got.
Okay,
I have a
any
question.
questions? Yep. Faith?
I do.
Okay.
So
Let's go
on the,
Faith and then Sam.
on the catalytic converters, because I know there's like precious metals in there and that's why they want
Yeah.
those. What is in place to like hold the places that are buying them accountable for those stolen goods then?
All those junk and salvage yards.
Yeah.
Yeah, detectives are working those the best they can. Like I said, there are ordinances. I've looked through them, and I can get back with you if you like to. if you'd like me to, I'll give you my email address, but there are ordinance, and there are ways that we can deter those salvage yards from accepting those or buying those catalytic converters.
Yeah, I would be interested in that just because if it's such a huge problem that it's been brought up in multiple dabs and there's not a lot of accountability on the buyer's part to purchase stolen goods, maybe that instead of telling everyone protect your stuff, which they should, but maybe we should hold the buyers of stolen goods more accountable.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. But that's a good acknowledgement.
So you offered your email address. Corey, can you put that in the minutes so all the DAB members would have that? Or is that something that
Can we
Officer
put it on the
Thompson-
chat?
Chat, there you go. All right. You read my mind. Sam, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have
question
a
as well?
question. Manny, I don't know, in our neighborhood, I'm probably in a lot of neighborhoods, next door is one of our major communication links now. And I know the city agencies can get into all the neighborhoods. I would like to see the police department on a fairly regular basis put something on there telling people that the police department really wants you to call for 911 if there's anything strange or unusual. They always call me or something, just waste time. But I just think if that's on there occasionally, people would use 911 more for those type of instances.
Yeah, I understand, and that makes perfect sense. I agree with you 100%. I think it's better for the person who saw the suspicious character, the suspicious activity, to contact 911 because they'll have that first person knowledge of descriptions and what the individual was doing.
Yeah, it seems like so many people
I agree with you 100%.
Seems like so many people are just a little shy about calling 911. They think it's got to be a shooting or something like that, but anything suspicious, time is really valuable. So that's why I'd like to see them do it on a next door maybe, or get out to our neighborhood and tell us.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I've actually been on some 911 calls that were kind of minor, and a citizen would say that like, oh, I didn't know if I should call or whatever. But yeah, like I said, I agree with you. You're 100% correct. So and that's the thing. I know I didn't bring up the larceny to autos. I'm actually working follow up on a few cases. I have one gentleman, he left his driver's license, his birth certificate, and his social security card and some mail in his car. And now he's a victim of identity theft. And you'll have incidences where people are leaving credit cards and debit cards, and those cards end up being used before they realize that they're missing. So I say that to say this. I know we have our numbers of larceny autos, and the numbers seem to be trending down year to date from 2020. But you also have to remember in the back of your mind, you got to keep it in the back of your mind that there's some larceny autos and things like that aren't being reported. Just like Officer Burnett said, if someone goes into your car and they might take some change, you might be like, oh, they just took change. I'm not going to call 911. But we want those reported because if we had 3 or 4 of those in one night, we can go out there and we can do our follow up, see what neighbors may have cameras. Some neighbors have cameras that actually face down the driveway going into the street, so we can get good descriptions of people and get that sent out citywide. Some people have Ring doorbells, and things like that. So that's why even if it's real minor, call 911. They'll shoot you over the case desk, and it'll take you 5 minutes to make that report with case desk.
Yeah, I just like to see them, announce that a little bit and get it out to the neighbors, because I think they would do it if they think it's not a burden on the police.
Okay.
Department.
Yeah, perfect. Good idea. I'll note that, and we'll get that out there.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sam. Anybody have anything else for Officer Thompson?
Hey, this is Chris, Mr. Thompson. I do. You mentioned LPRs being put in. Is that license plate readers?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
Awesome. Thanks.
Good question. I was kind of curious about that myself, but I didn't want to seem too ignorant. So thanks for stepping out there, Chris. Appreciate that. I don't see anyone else indicating additional questions for Officer Thompson. So thank you to you and your colleagues for your service and for keeping us safe.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anybody from Parks and Recreation to provide a report? Hearing none. Corey, did you have anything?
I didn't get anything from Park and Rec.
Okay. So moving on to Wichita Public Library report. I think I see Savannah on.
Yes, I'm here.
Awesome.
Okay, so all Wichita library locations are operating with curbside and drive-up window service only right now. That decision was made by library staff due to the rising number of COVID cases in our city. People are still able to borrow materials from the library by placing holds through the online catalog or by calling whichever location they want to pick them up from. We are waiving hold and transfer fees right now while our buildings are closed. When things are ready to pick up, then customers are just notified. They come to whichever location they would like to pick up from, and we serve them outside. Public computing is not available, but we do still offer copy, print, fax service through our curbside or drive-through service models. And then our, of course, digital collection is always available on Overdrive and Flipster. And so you can go to our website and see more information about that and more information about our COVID-19 reopening plans. For customers who use the email version of our mobile printing service, we've updated those email addresses. So we have a lot of people who use that. We've tried to make the email addresses a little bit simpler so that they're easier for us to share them with people. So anyone who wants to see those updated email addresses can go to our website. We've also been offering 3 different ways to get books and movies while the access to our collection is limited. So we provide personalized reading and viewing lists and early literacy grab bags. So people just fill out a quick form with some information about their preferences for reading or watching movies or TV. And then library staff just curate a list of materials that the customers might like. And then if the customer chooses to place those on hold, we place them on hold for them. And then they're able to pick them up at whichever location they'd like. And then finally, the Dr. Ronald W. Walters Branch Library has opened for curbside service. That new location is at 4195 East Harry Street, and it's the new home of the Linwood Park Branch Library. That library had just kind of outgrown the space at the Linwood Recreation Center, and so its new home is twice the size. And it features a lot of the amenities that customers have grown accustomed to at the Advanced Learning Library. And so we're hoping that virtual tours for the new location will be available online soon. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Does not look like it. Thank you so much for your report, Savannah. Appreciate you joining us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Public Works and Utilities report. Do we have anyone to offer a report for Public Works and Utilities?
Yeah, this is Mike Armour, engineering from Public Works and Utilities.
Thanks,
I'll
Mike.
go over, the projects that we currently have under construction, and then I'll go over some projects that we have in design, and then some other non-city projects, but I think is of interest to the DAB. So we got Kellogg and Greenwich interchange. That was to improve Kellogg to a 6-lane freeway with the 2-lane frontage roads. Current activities, freeway shoulder work is in progress, as well as the center barrier wall. And the last remaining KTA ramp work there at the east end of the project on the south side of Kellogg. Traffic impact, all traffic is on the main highway for Kellogg has been back to the main highway for a while now. At the east end, it's still 2 lanes in each direction at 40 miles an hour. However, it's looking like 60 miles an hour should be in place sometime next month, fingers crossed. That's always weather dependent, and with the current cold snap we're under, that could end up getting pushed back into April, but hopefully that still occurs in March. Greenwich is 2 lanes each direction, left turns, and both U-turns are all open. Eastbound K96 to westbound Kellogg is open. That had been closed for quite some time. It's been open now for a while, since I think back around Thanksgiving. And newly opened is the southbound I-35 ramp, the KTA ramp to westbound Kellogg. That's a boothless tolling. So if anyone's using that, kind of the key is to have a K tag to use it. You can use it obviously without a K tag, but I'm not sure of the exact process, but I think they will bill you or send you a bill in the mail that you need to get obviously paid by a certain time. But it's obviously a lot more convenient if you have a K tag. A little bit on the schedule is that project began in September of 2016, and now we're looking at completion later this year. Probably toward the end of this year should wrap up. The last remaining work is that westbound bridge, which is has to be completed before they can finish up that loop ramp in the southeast corner of Kellogg and the KTA. Redbud multi-use path, K96 to 159th. And I'll apologize for all the remaining projects. If anyone asks a question, I may not know a lot of the details, but I can find out the information. I'm familiar with Kellogg because I was involved in its design, but all the other ones I wasn't. So Redbud path improvements included a 14-foot wide path with concrete and rock surfaces for the multiple users. So new drainage structures and site amenities as well. Sanitary and water line improvements west of 127th were also done at the same time. There are currently no activities and the path is open and project is complete. And that's what you were talking about, Becky, with the ribbon cutting. Boston Park splash pad improvements, converting existing pool into a splash pad with some additional amenities. Landscaping work is in progress. There is no impact to traffic. Construction began in August of last year and preliminary startup scheduled in late February, later this month. Walking path repairs in Eastview, Harrison, Boston, and West Cessna Parks. That project is complete. Pavement preservation 2021 program. Asphalt overlays, Webb 21st to 29th. That should occur second or third quarters of this year. Harry, Webb to Greenwich, same. So spring through late summer or early fall. Micro surface, residential streets, pavement occurring this month, should be starting up this month. And then micro surfacing later in the spring and into the summer. Crack seal, arterial streets, Central, Rock to Webb, third quarter of this year. Harry, Woodlawn to Longford. Harry, Greenwich to 127th. Harry, 143rd to a quarter mile west of 159th. Pawnee, Rock to Webb, and then residential streets. We'll be getting the crack seal treatment as well. Preservation seal, arterial streets, that'll be getting that treatment are Rock Road, K96 to 45th, Webb Road, K96 to 37th, and 29th, Rock Road to Webb. I know I'm spouting out a lot of places here, and I sent Corey the list, so if anyone's wanting it, he can share it to you. So residential streets will also get, as noted, I think it should be a map online to show the preservation treatments, which locations are getting what. Some projects in design are, well, it's just one for this district is Pawnee, Webb to Greenwich, is to improve that to a 3-lane urban section with sidewalk, multi-use path. The DAB approved that back in September of 18. Council approved the same concept that same year in October. The project does include federal funding for the years this year and next year, which those federal funds always have to be obligated by, I think it's September, some date in September. So usually that means unless we get a little bit of an extension on that, the project is bidding by that date or just thereafter. So with the turnaround then, and construction probably wouldn't begin until maybe first thing 2022. Possibly later this year though. And then some other projects that may be of interest to the DAB are involved in the Ike transportation plan. North Junction, everyone's probably familiar with hearing about the Gold project. That actually got separated out into an accelerated phase called the, conveniently enough, the Accelerated Gold project. And that was to keep the construction going that's currently occurring just west of the interchange, so that we didn't pick up all the barrels, traffic get used to no construction going on, and then we throw out barrels 3 months later or 6 months later. We didn't want the frustration to the public. So we thought, well, we'll just, while we're going through the painful process of construction, we'll just keep it under construction was the goal. So that project bids actually here in the next week or two. It's a KDOT project. It's about a $35 million project. We submitted an application for that Accelerated Gold project, and the city is contributing just shy of $4 million, which is also matched by Sedgwick County as part of the local share of that grant application, or for the Ike program, to get that project going forward. We had also submitted a federal grant for the remainder of the Gold project. We submitted a 2020 build grant for the amount of, requesting the amount of $25 million in federal funds. We were awarded $21 million for that project, which has about a $86 million construction price tag to it. So we were $4 million short on that. However, KDOT has just recently agreed to fund that shortfall of $4 million. So the city is still contributing to that project as well, along with the Sedgwick County, and both agencies in the order of about $7 million each. Construction for that project is slated to begin toward the end of next year. K96 I-135 to Greenwich. This project was identified as a need during kind of the local consults, if you call it that, when KDOT was going around, or the Transportation Committee was going around the state to get buy-in from local agencies. And that one actually grew to a higher level of importance as that was kind of being digested by KDOT, and recognized the need for that one to be under design. So they're currently looking to expand K96 to 6-lane from the canal to Greenwich. Total estimated project cost is about $225 million. Working with KDOT to work on a projected timeline. There's no construction funding or anything, but they're starting the preliminary design work now. And then East Kellogg terminates effectively right there near K96. So the next interchange would be at 143rd. This project was not included in the first round of Ike, but however, the City of Wichita, Andover, and Wampo met with KDOT mid last year, kind of talked through some items of maybe why it wasn't selected. Also, there had been some discussions with you, Councilmember Tuttle, Alan King, Gary, and Senate President Masterson, to try to see what we can do to bolster that project in the next round of Ike. And my guess is they would probably get a little bit better rating, and hopefully, obviously, selected for some, at a minimum, some preliminary design work. And that's all I've got for Public Works, if anyone has any questions.
Well, that's a lot. Faith, I think you have a question.
Yes, I know we all have our stories about how we first got involved with the DAB, and mine actually is around pavement preservation. So I first talked to Becky years ago about my streets. And so I'm really excited because I read through the 2021 plan. And again, I saw that the streets in and around Eastridge were not in the plan, and they haven't been. And I've tried very much to be patient. And I would like to know when Lincoln and Governor and Woodlawn and all the streets that are in my area will be in the pavement preservation plan, because before I bought my new car, replaced 3 tires because of the potholes on Lincoln. So when will Lincoln be in that plan?
I don't know. I could check with the staff that oversees those projects to see when that might be going on. I know maintenance had hired a consultant to do an analysis of the city's streets, and they try to come up with a metric of, based obviously on condition, but also taking into factors maybe criticalness of the path, like if there's any other detours, but also the traffic volumes. And also I know there are some that are of a certain level or of condition where it may not have made sense to inject a lot of maintenance if it were to require a full rebuild, sooner. I doubt that that's probably the case for the streets that you indicated, but maybe it is. However, I can check with field staff to maybe see if those segments, you mentioned Lincoln, Governor, Woodlawn, are there some ends to those streets that you could provide me with that
Yeah, just Kellogg to Harry on Woodlawn and Woodlawn to Rock Road on Lincoln. I would just encourage anyone in our district to drive around Eastridge for a little bit and check out some of your district that's not where you live. I try to check out some of the district that's not where I live, because we all have a big district that we live in, and roads are my thing. And so I try to check out all the things, and we have some pretty great roads. So good job, Public Works. I'm not talking smack, but yeah, this is my thing. And I'm just curious. I'd like to know where Eastridge fits on that plan. So I'd love to see it.
And Mike, I can follow up with you tomorrow if that's okay. I made myself a note.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Faith. Anybody else have anything for Sam has something? Sam, you're on mute.
There, I got it. Yeah, I was looking.
There you go.
I mentioned this once before to somebody, but Faith talking about her streets over there. Well, another one not too far away that gets an awful lot of traffic, and I can't believe that something hasn't been done, is Douglas Street, east of Town East, from Eastboro to Rock Road. It's not that long, but you almost need a 4-wheeler to go down that street. It just tears your car up, and it's been that way for getting worse.
Thank you, Sam. Again, be analyzed on the higher level of just the limited funds of which roads, again, based on condition and volumes. But I've driven that one a lot when I was out there on East Kellogg driving to and from the project. So I got familiar with driving that. I know that segment that you're talking about. So can definitely get that on our radar as we look at the CIP.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have anything for Mike? All right. I'm seeing heads shaking no. So thank you, Mike. Appreciate your report and your willingness to be with us. So I think that brings us to the end of all of the staff reports. So I'd like to, if I could, get a motion to receive and file the staff reports for this evening.
So moved.
Thank you, Nazir. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Tim. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Same sign for opposed. Okay, so we are ready for new business. We have a few things on new business. The first thing I believe we have on our agenda is the Housing and Community Services Fiscal Year 2021-22 Funding Plan, CDBG Home and ESG, and Logan Bradshaw. Is Logan here to present?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Oh, there you are right in the middle of my screen. All right. Thank you. We'll turn things over to you, Logan.
Sounds good. Corey, am I able to share my screen at this point? I have a presentation.
Yeah, you should be able to. Do you see the option?
Yeah, perfect.
It's all yours.
Thank you. Okay, can everyone see that all right? Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and pre-apologize. I have a very vocal golden retriever, so if you guys hear her, apologies in advance. My name's Logan Bradshaw, and I'm a management analyst with the Department of Housing and Community Services. And tonight I'm here to talk to you about fiscal year 2021-2022 funding for 3 of our entitlement grant programs: the Community Development Block Grant Program, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, as well as the Emergency Solutions Grant. You might hear me shorten those to the acronyms you see here: CDBG, Home, and ESG. The city receives an annual allocation of these 3 funding streams from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. Funded activities align to the city's goal of creating a livable and sustainable community. And we use these funds to create strong, sustainable, inclusive communities, as well as affordable housing for Wichitans. As I mentioned before, there are 3 different entitlement grant programs that we receive on an annual basis. The first is the Community Development Block Grant Program, or the CDBG program. This is by far our most flexible funding source that we administer in our department. This year, we received an allocation of just under $3 million. The Home Investment Partnerships Program is used to create affordable housing for low-income households. And this year, we received just right around $1.5 million. And then the last grant that we'll talk about tonight is the Emergency Solutions Grant, or the ESG grant. And that's used to address homelessness in the Wichita area. And we received just under $250,000 for this current program year. To give you an idea of what our planning process looks like, as a stipulation of receiving these 3 federal grants from HUD, we have to create what we call a 5-year consolidated plan. And this is a 5-year plan. Our current plan runs from 2019 to 2023. And what it does is it identifies large-scale community needs, as well as spending priorities for a 5-year period of time for these 3 grant programs. And what we have to do each year within this 5-year period is create what we call program year action plan. And what this plan does is it basically more specifically drills down onto specific funding amounts for specific defined activities. And so right now, we're in our 2nd program year. We're planning for our 3rd program year, which is due to HUD no later than May 15th of this year. And it allocates funds for the period of July 1st through June 30th of the following year. We also wanted to mention that in response to the coronavirus pandemic and as authorization of the CARES Act, we received additional allocations of 2 of our 3 entitlement programs. So we received 2 additional allocations of CDBG funds, as well as 2 additional allocations of ESG funds. And so the activities that are carried out with these coronavirus, or CARES Act funding, as we call it, they not only have to meet the standard requirements of these 2 grants, but they also must prepare for, prevent, and or respond to coronavirus, or COVID-19. And so you can see here, we received 2 additional allocations of each of these grant streams. To give you a little bit of context on what our planning timeline looks like, we start sometimes what feels like right after the next program year begins, and planning for the upcoming program year. So in this past fall, all the way up until really this DAB meeting, we're working on gathering public input and then creating a preliminary development of what our annual action plan will be for the upcoming program year. In January, we went to City Council to seek appointment of the Grants Review Committee. I believe Dee served on the Grants Review Committee last year from DAB 2, and I believe Nancy is serving for this upcoming year. The Grants Review Committee actually convenes on Wednesday, so we're really excited to get that process started as well. But also in January, we issued a request for proposals for various aspects of these 3 grant streams. Like I said, the GRC is going to convene this month. There's 3 meetings over the course of this month to review proposals and make preliminary funding recommendations to the City Council. And with that, Housing and Community Services staff can then start to develop our preliminary spending plan for our 3rd program year action plan. In the spring, we will open up and close a 30-day public comment period for and what this public comment period is just another formalized process by which the public can weigh in on what they think spending priorities should be for the upcoming year. In May, the City Council will review the final spending plan and amounts, and then we will submit our action plan to HUD no later than May 15th. And then our program year begins on July 1st. For the remainder of the presentation, I just want to kind of give a brief overview of a little bit more in depth on each of these 3 grant programs. And so the first one that we'll talk about is the Community Development Block Grant Program. This is actually the block grant that I primarily work with in the department. And this graphic kind of gives you an overview of what types of activities that can be carried out with CDBG funding. Like I said, it's one of the most flexible funding sources, or it's actually the most flexible funding source that our department administers. And activities can be for community economic development, for affordable housing, for public facilities and infrastructure improvements, such as park improvements as well as various public service activities. To be a CDBG eligible activity, activities have to meet one of 3 national objectives. The first would be benefiting low to moderate income persons or areas. Preventing slum or blight is the second, and then the third would be addressing any urgent community need. But it's very important to note that 70% of the activities that we carry out with CDBG funding have to benefit low to moderate income persons. And so I wanted to show you, this is our 2020 federal adjusted income limit chart, which gives you an idea of what some of those incomes might look like. So for example, for a family of 4 to be at or below the moderate and median income, or moderate income category, which is 80% of area median income, a family would have to make at or below $58,100 to qualify for programming. There's a few other things to consider with the CDBG program. There is a limit on the public services category, so that kind of falls into this branch of CDBG, if you will. These are activities such as like domestic violence shelter services that we do, or youth crime prevention and enrichment categories, or like the funding that we use to support the neighborhood resource centers in districts 1, 3, and 6. There is a limit on that category. We can't spend more than right around $1.1 million. We also have to have an MOU to carry out CDBG funding with other city departments. And if we're going to contract with a private vendor, such as a nonprofit organization, we have to have an RFP as well as a subrecipient agreement to be able to allow that agency to administer CDBG funding. The next 2 slides will just give you an overview of some types of activities that we have funded with CDBG in the past. And a couple of ones that we're going to be doing in the future as well. The first are like infrastructure and park improvements in low to moderate income neighborhoods or opportunity zones. I don't believe that we've ever done projects within District 2 for infrastructure or park improvements, and that's because there are very few low income census tracts that fall within District 2. We are currently working on rolling out an economic development project, which is our facade improvement program. We're hoping for a soft rollout of March 1st on that program. And what that program would do is supplement the economic development department's facade improvement program, except for our program is more geared to businesses that serve low income communities, as well as smaller businesses, and it requires less of a match. We also administer a home repair program, which is a program that provides 0% forgivable deferred loans of up to $5,000 for emergency home repairs for low to moderate income families. We fund the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department's demolition and clearance of unsafe structures activities. Like I said before, we do fund the Office of Community Services for the neighborhood resource centers, as well as support staff within districts 1, 3, and 6 for Atwater, Evergreen, and Colvin. We fund currently Wichita Family Crisis Center, Catholic Charities Harbor House, Stepstone, as well as the Raise My Head Foundation for their domestic violence shelter service activities. We fund the YMCA, the Real Men, Real Heroes organization, as well as Kansas Big Brothers, Big Sisters for their activities that they carry out for youth crime prevention and enrichment in the Wichita area. And we also have a program that we actually administer in-house in our department called the Way to Work Youth Employment Program, which provides training and summer youth employment to right around 100 low to moderate income youth here in the Wichita area each summer. Next, I'll give you a brief overview of the Home Investment Partnerships Program. Like I said, this is for the development of affordable housing in the Wichita area. We can do homeownership activities such as provide down payment and closing cost assistance to low to moderate income families. With our Home 80 program, we do housing development as well as redevelopment activities. And we actually set aside funding for community housing development organizations to carry out housing development. And we'll talk a little bit more about community housing development organizations in a moment, but we also provide operating support for these organizations as well. Like I said, we set aside funding for housing development for CHODOs. To give you an idea of what are the requirements to be a CHODO, so they have to have legal and tax exempt status. They have to demonstrate capacity in terms of financial management as well as accountability mechanisms. They have to have capacity and experience serving in the Wichita community. They have to have community representation on their board. But the last one is really the most important. Their sole purpose has to be specifically for the development of affordable housing. And we have 3 community housing development organizations in Wichita, and 3 that we've also funded in the past. Those are Mennonite Housing, Jacob's Ladder, and Power CDC. They primarily do work in Districts 1, but they've also done work in District 6 and as well as District 3. And then the last grant that we'll talk about is the Emergency Solutions Grant, which is the grant that our department administers to help prevent and help with homelessness in the Wichita area. Home ESG activities can kind of be broken down into 2 different categories. These 2 are more so like administration of the ESG grant. The first is homelessness assistance, which sometimes you might hear called shelter services. So you can think, direct to support to shelters within the Wichita area would be the shelter services category. And then we have homeless prevention, which can ideally help prevent someone from becoming homeless. So those individuals and families that are in immediate danger of becoming homeless, we can provide rent as well as utilities assistance so that they are no longer unstable in their housing. And so at this point, we'd like to turn it over to the DAB to discuss what types of activities should be funded if our allocation increases or decreases. And then also to understand which activities are of the highest priority to you as District 2, and then which activities are of the lowest. And then if there are any other urgent needs that we should consider, we'd like to hear about those as well. So I can leave this slide up, I guess.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful to have that slide up for us to take a look at. I guess before we jump into that discussion, I just have a question about your presentation and the information that you shared about the CARES Act funding that was allocated out. Can you speak to how the CARES Act money was used in relationship to these programs and services?
Sure. So I actually kind of anticipated that question. Are you guys able to see this Excel document?
No.
Oh.
We see your PowerPoint slide.
Okay, let me do a new share so that you can see this funding spreadsheet. What about now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. So this is our CARES Act funding spreadsheet, and what it does is it shows you the funding source. So here we have Community Development Block Grant on the top and CARES Act Emergency Solutions Grant on the bottom. It outlines our total award for each grant and then talks about how the funding was allocated here.
All right, can you make it a tiny bit bigger? I don't
Yeah, no problem.
have 20-year-old eyes.
Kind of cuts up. How about that? Is that a little better? Or I can zoom in a little bit more. Okay. So I think you asked, your question had something to do with how it was in relation to programs we currently fund. So we did provide an additional funding allocation for the domestic violence shelters that we serve. We actually provided additional $75,000 for last program year, and then we also provided $75,000 for this program year, as you can see right here. We did offer to provide additional CARES Act funding to our current youth crime prevention and enrichment providers, and 2 of them took us up on that offer, and so we allocated an additional right around $20,000 to them. We provided substantial additional funds to our Office of Community Services. So we provided $50,000 so that they could expand their hotspot program, as well as we programmed $30,000 within the Office of Community Services for those districts 1, 3, and 6, so that we could help get the word out about COVID-19 relief programs that the department was funding, as well as other COVID-19 relief programs that were going on in the Wichita community. One thing that I worked with that we did an additional allocation for was a food box program, and Councilwoman Becky Tuttle is also involved in this. She helped secure seed funding for this program. But it was a really great program that we were able to stand up for elderly tenants within public housing, within our 4 multifamily public housing properties, as well as we were able to do some scattered site programming with our scattered site public housing, as well as our housing choice voucher clients. I could talk about CARES Act funding all day because I feel like it's consumed my life for the last year or so, but those are some of the notable allocations for the CDBG funding. We also provided additional funding to our homeless prevention providers. You can see that right here, Center of Hope and Salvation Army. We provided some outreach funds to some of our homeless services providers as well. But yeah, so that kind of gives you a good overview. This is all, this is a document that went to City Council too, so I can provide a copy of this to Corey if you guys would like this as well.
I don't know if any of the members want a copy of this information. I was mostly curious about, you know, just whether or not the additional funding was allocated out to providers who are already receiving other funding from us, or whether you did a whole nother RFP process that I wasn't aware of. So I appreciate knowing how those decisions were made.
Yeah.
Other questions about the CARES Act money before we go back to the previous slide to provide feedback on the plan for 2021 and 22? Okay, Logan, would you mind going back to your previous slide so we can
Yes, there you go.
address the questions? So based on the presentation made by Logan today, are there any burning, I guess, priorities that you all would like to highlight? The way I kind of think about this is when I was a United Way volunteer, allocations volunteer, grant review volunteer, we would kind of give thumbs up to the priorities, hold harmless, or decrease the allocation. So I don't know if we want to just in general buckets give feedback, or how you all would like to go about providing information to Logan on your sense of the priorities or the needs that you see in the community. I know we don't have a lot that happens here in District 2, but you may have a sense for, you know, the community in general and where you see there being priorities.
Hey, can I ask a question?
Sure,
Sorry,
absolutely.
Logan, I just want to understand a little bit more. In the spreadsheet you just gave us, you talked about some of the preventative programs that are there for the homeless. And looking at this, what are some of the preventative, because I feel like a lot of these are reactionary rather than looking at getting to the roots of some of these issues, whether it be domestic violence or even you talked about the youth crime prevention. So is that separate money, or is there money going to prevention and getting to some of the root issue causes of these things, or is most of this reactionary in dealing with it after it's happened. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. I'll have to kind of break it down in my head a little bit. So I think, yes, we do provide funding for homeless prevention
Right.
here. So historically, like I said before, not more than 60% can go towards shelter services. For the last, handful of years, I would even probably go as far as to say 10 years, they have kept the maximum for shelter services and allocated the remaining 40% to the homeless prevention providers. And as I'm sure you saw, our emergency solutions grant is substantially smaller than our CDBG grant or even our home grant. But Nancy, you're kind of poised in an interesting place since you'll be on the grants review committee. If maybe shifting funds in the ESG category to provide more funding for prevention and less for shelter services, something that you might be interested in, and that would be a really good topic of discussion for the GRC. But yeah, prevention.
I think I might offer or add that the categories for the way the funding is allocated out is set by your funder, correct? So you have certain requirements for what you can and cannot fund depending upon the criteria that's already been set. So the grant review committee and the feedback that we provide has to be in the context of those parameters, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
But I believe you said it's not more than 60%. So it doesn't say it has to be at least anything. It just can't be more than.
That's correct for shelter services.
Okay. Because I like the way Nancy's head is going, because I am much more a fan of prevention versus intervention. Intervention is great, but if we can prevent, I would prefer that we prevent versus intervene. And I'm going back to, how did we choose these services in the first place? Because I'm looking through your presentation that was sent to us. Oops, I'm on your screen. Let me go back to the email that was sent to us. Oh, I can't get back to it now, but I was looking through, and on background, it doesn't say how we got to these services. I'm sure there was some kind of vetting that was like, these are the services that are going to meet the objectives. I don't see those. So we're thumbs upping and thumbs downing based on services that were chosen, correct?
So it's based on what's currently in our 5-year consolidated plan. So within that 5-year planning period, and for the year, really the year and a half leading up to creating that plan for our 5-year period, we do extensive community outreach. We consult with multiple community organizations to determine what the broad priorities and needs of the community is for that 5-year period. And then within that, now there are opportunities to change what those broad funding priorities are, but that's kind of a more extensive process than just planning for your upcoming program year, if that makes sense.
Somebody else already did all the work.
Right. So
Okay.
I think what you're looking for feedback on is, for example, like, Nancy raised the issue, and Faith, you've kind of echoed, support for that is that one possible thing for us to consider adding to our recommendations would be to prioritize homeless prevention services at a greater level. And that would be feedback that we're giving Logan to take back to the creation of the plan moving forward.
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. I don't think that
Please.
anybody's expecting, we say yes to the Greater Wichita YMCA and no to Salvation Army, anything like that. And Logan, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my understanding, this is more kind of high level. I talked to a few of the other DABs, and they said too, kind of just some discussion of, what they're seeing in the community, but not the deep dive into how the funding is actually allocated.
Right, because that's what we are going to have Nancy be.
That's what Nancy's job's going to
and what I had a chance to do last year, which, Faith, if you're really excited about it, maybe next year you'll be the grant review person from our district.
Councilmember Tuttle is correct. So the thing about these funding allocations is we never know what they're going to be year to year. We can kind of get a good idea. But yeah, if our funding allocation significantly increases or decreases, we're looking to you guys for help on determining, what types of activities should be funded or possibly cut. If
So
that-
one thing I heard is more prevention, more homeless prevention.
Okay.
Another possibility, and I don't have that slide in front of me, is to, for example, say we want more, we would be supportive of more allocated toward blight mitigation or whatever those were. We want to make sure that we might recommend, increased attention to home repairs for folks, who might need the financial support. So it's that kind of recommendation, correct?
Yes.
So Nancy says not just homeless prevention, but more prevention services in general. So in all of those categories, what I hear Nancy saying is that she would like to see an emphasis on prevention in the context that we can.
Okay.
What else are the rest of you kind of thinking about now that you've heard this? Anybody besides Faith and Nancy?
I'll jump in.
I'm kind of
Lo-
scrolling. Sorry, I don't see everybody on my screen.
That's
That
all right.
Nazir?
Thank you. Logan, you mentioned 3 organizations that deal with affordable housing. Mennonite Housing is one of them, and 2 others. Are these organizations at capacity as far as building houses? Or if there were more funding, they'll be able to build more housing?
So that kind of depends year to year. I know that a lot of our community housing development organizations are experiencing significantly increased costs because it's getting more expensive to actually build a home. Just the material costs are going up. But where that also falls in is they have to be able to identify a family who is interested in buying a home and then help them secure the financing to do so. So that really does vary year to year. I will say that we make the lion's share of our home program dollars available to those types of organizations that are interested in carrying out housing development activities too. So yeah, I think that there would be capacity, but like I said, that varies year to year as well as with the increased cost of actually what it costs to build a home.
Thank you.
So Logan, how do you, is there an RFP that goes out for those specific types of vendors? And so any vendor who would meet the qualifications could make application to participate?
Yes, that's correct. So that will be part of the Nancy's job starting this week, is to review the applications that came in for the Community Housing Development Organization housing development set aside
Right.
funding.
So if Nazir knew of an organization that could be a potential vendor or builder in this situation,
Mhm.
he would share that information to go to watch for RFPs and that type of thing?
Yes, if they were a community housing development organization, they could apply through the RFP funding. We also take applications directly from our department. Like for example, one of our nonprofits that we work a lot with is Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity isn't a community housing development organization, but they're able to apply and receive funding, home funding, to subsidize the cost of housing development in low to moderate income areas. So yeah, if he knew of somebody, then he could definitely pass them along to our department and we could get him some more information on that.
Okay, anyone else have questions or feedback that you would like to share regarding activities that you believe should be highest priority or urgent needs that maybe you didn't hear being addressed in part of what's already being made available in our community? Going once, going twice. Okay, I think we've been able to share with you some comments about what we think needs to be reprioritized. Sounds like a heavy dose of prevention is what's on our minds. So I think we just have a motion to receive and file her presentation.
So moved.
Thank you, Nazir. Anybody second?
Second.
Thank you, Faith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, thank you, Logan. I appreciate your presentation. And Nancy, thank you for being willing to represent our DAB in the Grant Review Committee this year. And I'm assuming Becky's already made note that Faith has expressed curiosity about this, so maybe Faith will be able to serve next year. Okay, so we have 2 additional items on our new business. The first one is going to be presented by Kathy Morgan, I believe. Is that correct? Thanks, Kathy.
Yes, thank you very much. Good evening, DAB members. The case that I'm presenting to you is a community unit plan amendment, and that is for the Town East, what you all know as Town East Mall. That community unit plan has several parcels in it, and this amendment is for parcel 1 only. And that is that includes the Town East Mall building, and there's an existing building that used to be the auto shop for Sears that's now vacant. And so this application was to amend parcel 1 to allow the use of nightclub in the city, because there is round 1 is a bowling alley. They already have a malt liquor beverage license, and they wanted to add karaoke. And so in order to do this, the live entertainment falls under nightclub in the city. So the recommendations from staff and what was approved by the Planning Commission on January 21st was that the, Corey, I don't know if you can show the site plan that I have in the staff meeting. It should be toward the end of the presentation. Okay, right there. Yeah, back up. So what you see outlined in yellow there is the location where round 1 entertainment is, and it's a bowling alley. They have 8 lanes. They have arcade games. They have 2 rooms that they rent out for private parties. And so what they want to do is to be able to have karaoke in those 2 rooms. And there's no music outside. There's no patio set up outside. This nightclub limited use would be allowed only in the existing round 1 entertainment area, bowling alley. And should that business leave, then the condition or the amendment would become void. And if there were another business that went in there and wanted a nightclub, they would have to go through the same process. This is only ancillary to the existing round 1 business. As you can see, that parcel 1 goes all the way north to Douglas Street. So there's Rockwood on the north side. There's Bonnie Bray on the east side. We then get into Eastboro on the west side. And then south of that is commercial. You do have some at the along Kellogg Drive there. There's a Longhorn Steakhouse, a couple other restaurants that have malt liquor licenses, and that type of thing. So staff recommended approval of this amendment with it being specifically predicated on its association with the existing as an ancillary use associated with the bowling alley that is inside the mall structure, nothing allowed on the exterior of the building. They have their own, well, this is not part of, obviously, of the recommendation, but just to give you some background, the business provides security. So when it operates after the mall closes at 9 o'clock, the access into the interior of the mall is closed, and then they provide security for the remaining hours that they're open. And so, as I said earlier, the Planning Commission voted to approve this amendment with these conditions, and the 14-day protest period ended Thursday, February 4th, and we received no valid protests. So I will answer any questions that any of you may have. And I think Joey Denicky is online with us. Joey, are you out there?
Yes, I am. Thanks, Kathy. Hopefully you can hear me here. Yeah, Joey Denicky with MKC Engineering, agent on behalf of applicant, and I would be happy to answer any questions as well. I do have a presentation if you guys want to kind of look through the facility a little bit more, but I'll just start with any questions.
Can you tell me what the hours of operations are? I think, Kathy, you just mentioned that they provide security after the mall hours close at 9 p.m., I assume. So how long is this business open past that?
Joey,
Well,
I'm going to let you answer that, because they do have, with COVID-19 going on, they have had limited hours. And I think as the restrictions for COVID-19 relax, once we see how the spikes or reduction in active cases happens, then they will expand their hours. So Joey, I'm going to let you take that.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. Yeah, like Kathy was stating, right now, the facility is open till 11 p.m., and that's due to the COVID restrictions. I will make a note that they have a lot of facilities all over the U.S. and just where, you know, this is not their first operation that they have going on. So outside of the COVID restrictions, they're going to be open till 2 a.m. Although, like Kathy stated, they do have private security that's there during the duration of the hours. And also it has, they have restrictions due to kind of the different age limits, you know, limiting younger individuals staying in there as long.
So I guess I just want to ask the DAB right now. Would you like to have Joey go ahead and do his presentation, or do we have specific questions for Kathy that you'd like to have addressed first?
I have a couple
Nazir?
of questions.
Okay, Nazir?
Kathy, you said you did not receive any valid protests. Did you receive any non-valid protests?
Nazir, what happened was we received quite a few emails and telephone calls from the neighborhoods surrounding before we had the Planning Commission meeting on the 21st. And there were, you know, I know Sam, I think, was spoke at the Planning Commission meeting. The gentleman from Rockwood Neighborhood Association, Lance, spoke at the commission meeting. And the main concern that was brought up was the issue of the nightclub in the city and that that the neighbors did not want something like Club Rodeo being able to go in there, being able to, put a building out on what is parking now around the mall building, so that this is all self-contained within the mall building specific to that lease space. And I think we had a very good discussion at the Planning Commission about how this was going to be used. And so after the Planning Commission, as you all know, maybe some of you newer DAB members, there's a 14-day protest period after the Planning Commission. And so if anyone wants to file what we call a valid protest, it's a form that you put your name, the property owner's name, and if there's more than one owner listed on the tax record, then it has to have all of those names. It has to have the legal description of their property, the lot and block, whatever that is, and they submit that to the city clerk's office in this instance. And so at the close of business on February 4th, we had received no petitions from any of the property owners within the surrounding area.
Okay. Joey, did you meet with the neighbors? Because we know that there are neighbors that are upset. Did you or your client meet with the neighbors?
No, we did not. We did receive those emails that Kathy spoke about. And then I believe we spoke to Sam early on in the process and kind of give you a little background. Originally, we applied for the amendment to the entire parcel 1. It's kind of a unique situation because parcel 1 is such a large parcel. And so naturally, notification was given out to the surrounding neighbors 1,000 feet out from the parcel 1 limits. And so we got a lot of feedback from the neighbors. And I think there's a lot of concern that, there's going to be a nightclub in the empty parking lot and kind of, surrounding the mall. And, that's not the intention of Round 1 entertainment. In fact, we wouldn't even really classify this as a nightclub, but per the zoning, outlines, it's with all these uses combined, it's putting it into the level as a nightclub. Although if, again, I'd be happy to go through some of the pictures and you kind of clearly see that it's more of a family entertainment center versus a typical nightclub.
And Joey, this is Becky. I know that Steve has a question and I don't want to jump in, but I think it would be helpful and certainly don't want to, delay everyone's schedule. But if you could maybe go through the slide deck, I think it would just be helpful. And I'm sorry, Steve, you were next and I apologize for diving.
Oh, that's all right. I just wanted to clarify in my mind that I heard and read right. So they already have their liquor license. They can already stay open till 2 anyway. So they're just having to ask for this CUP because they want to have what technically is considered live entertainment because they want to do karaoke, right?
That is correct.
Nothing's being imposed more than if there's a concern that a bunch of karaoke people are going to storm the neighborhoods adjacent, right?
Right. Yeah. And there was a concern. There was a concern, quite frankly, about the added traffic that it might generate. But as I said, this is not your Club Rodeo type of event place. And as Joey goes through his slides, the applicant has stated that the 2 rooms that they're going to use or allow the karaoke in, they will not allow alcohol in. So they have it pretty self-contained. So I think it would be helpful for Joey to go through that deck of slides as Council Member Tuttle said.
Hey, and before he does that, has there been discussion on a city level to maybe come up with some different categories? Because I know this comes up a lot and people, they hear nightclub in the city.
Right.
And they think of what you said. Same thing with you know, if a brewery sells less than 50% food, they've got to be a nightclub. And it seems like that's a
Right.
pretty broad definition in the city of Wichita that gets then very confusing. Like Jenny Dawn Cellars down at Union Station, which is the furthest from a nightclub, we had
Yes.
to rezone for nightclub. And has there
Right.
been any discussion to create maybe 2 or 3 levels that are, then when the public notices do come out, it's more of a, hey, this is an X that happens to serve, or it serves
Right.
51%.
Yeah.
Has
And
there been any discussion on that?
I actually have talked to the planning director and Kathy, please jump in, but the new planning director, Scott Wadel, and asked that we can have that discussion. And Kathy,
Yes,
please.
we are working on putting together the language that would allow that type of separation. So we wouldn't have to do this kind of thing in the future.
Well, more so when you send, especially when it comes to nightclub, what you got to go to 1,000 feet instead of 300 or whatever. And now you've got even a bigger group of more confused people.
Well, the 1,000 feet, remember that zoning applications, the notification area is based on the acreage of the subject property. And so in this case, parcel 1 in and of itself is 72 acres. That the Town East community unit plan is like 127 acres. And so by the very fact that the parcel 1 was 76 or 72 acres, that's what required the 1,000-foot notification around the community unit plan itself.
Okay, Joey, let's go ahead and see what you have to show us, and then we'll proceed from there.
Okay, that sounds good. And I may go through them kind of quickly. So if you have any questions, just kind of stop me. So again, here's kind of the entrance to the Round One facility. I don't know if anyone has been out there, but it's actually a really neat facility. I think it's a great thing for the mall as well as just the community. It's a great venue for entertainment of all ages. So like Kathy stated, you know, currently what they have in operation is they have the bowling alley, the arcade, the dining, the pool tables. They do have the party rooms right now. They have 2 of them. I think it's per room, and there's around 40 occupants that could be allowed in those rooms. And so again, what they're wanting to do is bring on the karaoke component to those rooms, just, you know, for private gatherings. Here's just some pictures I'm going to kind of go through quickly of the bowling alley, as well as kind of the arcade area. It's actually the largest part of the facility is the arcades. They have, you know, over 250 games, which is just the largest in Wichita. Here's kind of their prize area where you can take tickets and get prizes. Here's their dining options that they have. And then here's their bar for the patrons, of course. Pool tables. So here are the party rooms. You can see, you know, they're right next to each other here. And, you know, as you look inside, you can see that, you know, it's not a typical nightclub. It's more for kind of some gatherings of friends and family to kind of get together. So, you know, like I was saying, they're wanting to bring in the karaoke component within these party rooms. And I might also mention, this is just a business restriction on themselves, but they are actually not allowing alcohol to be within the party rooms themselves. So just wanted to say that as well. Again, here's some more pictures. You know, we go into safety. They've done a number of things to kind of keep the facility safe, because, you know, that's the last thing they want is to harm their patrons in there. They're wanting it to be kind of a safe and family environment. They have signage put up. You know, of course, they have the security and outside the mall, as well as kind of on the entrance to the mall as well. They check IDs, and they're putting on bracelets to different ages of the individuals. Again, here's security. Here's the curfews that I kind of spoke of, just limiting who's staying in the facility at certain times. And this, again, is just kind of the area of the round one entertainment. And so the nightclub use is restricted to this area in green itself. Just to say again, if round one ever goes away for whatever reason, the use of a nightclub component goes away. So it doesn't carry over to any other businesses surrounding, including within the mall. So
Joey,
this just kind of shows the notification area.
Yeah, sorry,
Okay.
I thought you were done. My bad.
It's all right.
Go ahead.
Nope, it's all right. Oh, I think I'm pretty much there. That's all the pictures. So I guess if you have any other questions, just let me know.
I was just going to bring it back to the DAB and see if any of the other members of the advisory board had questions specifically for Kathy or Joey based on his presentation. If you could return it back to the gallery and stop
Yep.
screen share, that'd be awesome. Steve, did you get all your questions answered? Okay. Anybody else have questions? I want to invite Sam to share with us because he obviously represents Bonnie Bray. And so I wanted to give him a chance. Anybody have any questions before I turn it over to Sam? All right, Sam. Oh, go ahead, Tyler.
Thank you. Being that the entire facility won't be used as karaoke, just these 2 rooms, it sounds like any added extra noise would be insulated pretty well. I don't know, Joey, can you comment on that? If the neighbors have any worries that this change is going to impact like noise pollution?
Yeah, I really don't think there's going to be any impact there. As you can see, the facility is really far away from any kind of residential neighborhood. I think the closest is to the east of Rock Road, which I measured out to about 800 feet. And again, that's going through the entire structure of the mall. So I don't think there's any issue with any of the noise pollution. Like you said, I feel like there'll be noise within the bowling alley and the arcades, but the noise of the karaoke, there shouldn't be much at all.
All right, Sam, let's hear from you.
Yeah. Well, originally, my main real gripe was it covered the whole area originally. And, there's a lot of other buildings around there that we could put a nightclub in. And that was my real gripe is, we're keeping it into that little area. To me, it sounds a little strange still. I didn't even realize they had a bar in there, but it seems strange that adding karaoke to 2 party rooms that there's not going to be any liquor or anything, that would be called a nightclub. I mean, the classifications, I agree, need to be worked on. That's not a nightclub. But
it certainly sounds like Becky having the conversations that she's having to really address the issue of what is it really, and having it be less confusing and less unclear to the people who live around the area is really, something really important to take away from this conversation. Any other objections, obviously, Sam, then to that?
The other thing is, I know Eastboro is very interested, but I know there's been some police activity over there in the evenings as I've been. I mean, it's blocked from my side, but I have heard, there's one of my neighbors drove by and he said there's right now, but I think 2 o'clock sounds kind of late. I mean, I know Eastboro's not that far away, and people getting out if they're that's one of my big gripes too. I think 2 o'clock's a little late. I guess I'm an old timer. 2 o'clock.
That's not
2 o'clock sleeping hours.
Well, and I saw Faith giggle a little bit because 2 a.m. may not be so, late for those of us who might go out then, I don't know. But that, I don't think the hours is the issue that we need to take a look at really, other than, and to just say we're, how we want to recommend the action proposed today. So I think, oh yeah, go ahead, Faith.
Yeah, I read all the letters and all the complaints that, I know they weren't official complaints, but I still read them because I wanted to see what the community members had to say. And it seemed like a lot of them were just really concerned about traffic, to the point where they like, we'll make it a gated community. Well, I don't know that this karaoke is going to add any more traffic than the bar and the bowling already was going to. And that they probably didn't know, just like Sam said, that there was already a bar in there. I mean, I live across the street from Townies, and I've seen the big bowling pin, and I didn't even know all that was in there. I don't really go to the mall, but like they probably didn't know all that was already in there. So I don't know that adding 2 karaoke rooms is really going to do much more. I think the fear of the nightclub phrase is what generated all of this kerfuffle. And I think if that's explained really carefully, that's probably going to allay a lot of the angst around the nightclub or the 2 a.m. or the traffic or whatever was driving a lot of this. Because I read all the letters, and that's what the fear was, that there's going to be all these teenagers driving through our streets, throwing beer bottles and causing a bunch of ruckus. And
Yeah,
I didn't see that in this presentation.
I do
Well,
appreciate those comments.
I think one of my real concerns early is, Town East is right in the center of, a lot of residential areas. And I look at Town West and what's happened to it. And I guess I just hope Town East stays merchandising type business as long as possible. I know our things are changing, but Town West turned pretty fast, and that would not, that was one of my big concerns. And I know some of the other people I've talked to are the same way. We kind of like Town East the way it was. And I don't know, a lot of people didn't realize about a year or 2 years ago, they tried to get carnivals in the parking lot. We did get that stopped. So, you just see these things happening, and it's a concern to the neighborhoods around there. It's not just this particular thing, but it's a concern.
I think what's great is that we do have a process, and we do have the DAB that, we can also look out for the concerns of our fellow citizens and neighbors. And Steve, I see that you're unmuted, so I'll pitch it to you real quick. And then I want to check in to see if there's anybody from the public that wants to say a few things to us.
No, I think it's just probably beating that dead horse about the definitions and terminology, because I could see the fear, because when, Simon Mall still owned Town West when they put in denim and diamonds. And if I was, and I live in Rockwood, and you get the letters that says, nightclub of the city, and you're like, oh, I can see the same concern. You're thinking they're going to go put in a 20,000 square foot bar that is going to create a lot more than just a technicality that I'm adding to karaoke machines, so I think it does just show that need for definition is probably definitely there.
Sure, point well taken. So I do see people on the meeting that I don't recognize, and so I did want to just check to see if there was anyone in the meeting today that wanted to speak specifically to this case. So if there's anyone, Stacy, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
What I'll ask is for you to give your full name and where you live, and then just 2 minutes to state your concerns. If there's more than one person here, then I would appreciate it if you would just use your 2 minutes to add anything new for the DAB to understand or consider from your perspective. So Stacy, before we let you go here, can I get somebody who is willing to be the timekeeper so we can manage our time? Thanks, Faith. So let us know when you're ready, and we'll give Stacy 2 minutes to kind of share the concerns that he would like for us to be aware of. All right, you're up, Stacy.
Yes, ma'am. I want to first start by saying thank you for Councilwoman Tuttle and the District Advisory Board. I'm Stacy Glenmore. I'm the mayor of the city of Eastboro, and we've been following this with a lot of interest. Sam, I think, has summed up most of our discussion. I think for us, it's not a karaoke room that is getting us excited, nor the noise from the karaoke room. I've been to the round one with my daughter, had a great time. I was not aware it was open until 2 a.m. But I learned that through the planning board. Also became aware of their want to create the nightclub, quote unquote. And I do think there's some room for Wichita to work on how they classify things. But I think my biggest concern is twofold. One is the strategic concept of allowing something like this here. And like Sam said, the overall trend is probably going to be difficult for these businesses. I hope that we continue to lay down good, smart zoning that protects the investment all these people have put into their houses in the area. I think that all the people around here have spent a lot of money on their houses, spend a lot of time on them, and try to take good care of them, and are concerned about some of those trend lines. Secondarily, my police force is concerned about not so much the karaoke room or the inside round one, but mostly in the parking lot. And I think they wanted me to make sure that I pass that along as well. The continued, opening of things that go on there just allow for more opportunity for us to have to be involved. We like to help out Wichita, but if it becomes a burden, we have to focus on ourselves. And I don't want to be in that type of place. So that's all I had to say, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Sure.
Dee, this is Becky.
Yeah.
And thank you, Mayor
Absolutely.
Moore, for being here. I appreciate your time, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you during this process. I did, and as you all know, according to state statute, I can't weigh in, I can't share any opinion, I can't do any influence, and that's not my goal. But I do just want to mention one thing to Mayor Moore, and I've echoed this to other residents who have called. The actual, because I checked, the actual parking lot of the mall is the responsibility of Simon Properties. Of course, Wichita Police can go in anywhere, anytime, but Simon Mall has that's their property, that's their security system. And so I've talked to the chief of police a couple times about this case, just to make sure that if we see anything or hear anything, that we're taking care of it and being proactive. But there is security in addition to WPD. So just FYI, more FYI than anything, even regarding this case.
Thank you, Becky. Appreciate that. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to address the specific issue? I'm not hearing any, so we'll take it back to the DAB. Thank you so much for being here. Members of the District Advisory Board, any other questions or concerns or discussion before we look to take the recommended action?
Hey, Dee, this is Chris. I apologize. I didn't get in earlier. I'm having an internet issue. I'm tethered onto my phone right now.
Sure.
I have a question, because I think I just based on experience understand the concern of some of these emails and stuff. Kathy, can you expand upon what else is included in nightclub in the city? I think that's a concern of citizens a lot, is that they read this and then you hear the story from the owner and the applicant that it's, oh, we just want to add karaoke. But I think the underlying concern is, well, what else does this allow them to do in the future without resubmitting an application?
In this specific instance, Chris, it doesn't allow them to do anything other than the karaoke. Now, in general, a nightclub in the city allows nightclubs receive more than 50% of their income from alcohol sales. They aren't considered restaurants. So a lot of these places, particularly Round One Entertainment, even the restaurants that are right around them there, their income is more than 50% from food sales. So that's a difference between the nightclub in the city, is they don't have much in food sales. They also generally have dancing. They have live music. They have a much larger footprint than what we're talking in this instance. And so parking requirements too would be, have to be calibrated to make sure that per square footage, they have enough parking spaces. I'm sorry, my cat is playing in a plastic bag here. That background noise. So that's basically the difference. And so as DAB members have said, and we're working on, is trying to tighten up that language for the definition of nightclub in the city, so it would take out things like karaoke, that type of thing.
Thank you.
I hope that
Kathy,
answers.
yeah, thank you for addressing that question. Chris, did that answer it for you? So I believe what we have in our agenda is recommended action, and there are specific conditions, 4 specific conditions that go along with approving the recommendation of staff or recommending the approval of staff, however we need to say it. But I think we're ready for a motion from a member of the District Advisory Board on the action before us. Nazir?
I came in thinking I'll vote against it, but after understanding what it is, I'd like to make a motion to go ahead and approve the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Tyler seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much, everybody. We have one more.
Thank you.
Thank you, DAB members. I'll see
Yeah,
you next
and-
time.
Thank you. And
Thanks,
thank
Kathy.
you, Stacy,
Thanks,
for
Joey.
being on. Do appreciate that. So we have one more case before us this evening, and I believe Philip is going to present that for us.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Philip Zievenbergen. I'm an associate planner with the Wichita Metropolitan Area Planning Department. Your last case tonight is a rezoning request. For those of you who don't know, it's been a while since I've actually been at DAB 2. I missed you guys. They keep assigning me other ones. Before I get into today's case, the rezoning is for a zoning classification called Planned Unit Development, so PUD. Something to note with these is that a PUD is a custom zoning classification. So there are PUDs around Wichita, but every PUD is unique. There's no PUD that really is the same. It provides flexibility within our zoning code. When somebody wants to do a use that doesn't necessarily fit nice and neatly into one of our existing zoning classifications, this is what we recommend that they do, and it allows them to basically kind of write their own rule book. Not that they get all the say, we take it in and we review it and we put it up against things within the zoning code to make sure they're not asking for something that's completely out of the question. But it's completely custom. The PUD document that is created becomes the zoning classification for that specific site. And so all of the site development characteristics and stuff like that are listed in there. And a lot of times, especially like this one, this is actually a fairly simple PUD. They actually state an underlying zoning district to refer to. So they often say uses or site development standards as listed in this case, they're saying SF5, single family residential. And that just makes it a lot easier for them as they write the PUD document, that they don't have to go into all the specifics that the zoning code does. They just refer to something. Most of the time with the PUD, they're looking for a mixture of uses that aren't in one specific zoning classification, but can be compatible with each other. So that kind of as a background, I'll kind of dive into this. The applicant, which is Jay Russell, he is a developer in town. This is actually the 3rd subdivision he's trying this with. There's 2 others in 2 other districts. In the Rocky Ford subdivision, so it's at about 33rd and Rock Road, so just to the east of the Air Force Base, south of 31st Street. The very back half, and if Corey, I don't know if you're working on getting a site plan pulled up, I think that'll be very helpful if we can. The back half of this subdivision has yet to be developed. They started with the duplexes along Rock Road. They started building some single family homes behind those. And then there's a whole separate area in the back that has yet to be constructed. So this is applying to that. And when we get a site plan, I can show what I mean. It encompasses 172 lots. And the way Mr. Russell can do this is he still owns all of these. As a developer, he owns all of these 172 lots that this applies to. And what he's looking at doing, given the world we're living in now, where there's a lot more working from home, students are being homeschooled, whether parents have taken them out of regular school or they're just having to do remote learning, individuals who have wanted to care for aging parents, but not to want them in nursing facilities if that facility would have to go on lockdown or something like that because of a virus. He wants to provide them an opportunity to have what's called an accessory apartment permitted by right within the zoning classification. And there's one other aspect to it, and they don't coordinate with each other. Somebody could do one and somebody could do the other. You don't have to have one or both. He also wants to allow one non-resident employee for home occupations. And I'll break these down individually here, but that's a request. He's looking to rezone. As you can see here, everything in that dark outline on the back half of the Rocky Ford Edition, those are the 172 lots it applies to. To rezone them, half of them, or not quite half of them, 65 of the lots are zoned 2-family, which is can allow the development of duplexes. And the other 115 lots are zoned single-family SF5. And so he wants to rezone them to allow accessory apartments by right and one non-resident employee for a home occupation. So let's start with the accessory apartment. In SF5 and TF3 zoning, which these are currently zoned, an accessory apartment can be accomplished if an individual lot owner comes in and requests a conditional use and goes through the public hearing process like we are now. So it's not a request that seems foreign. Oftentimes we have people come in and request the conditional use because they want to build a small little apartment in their backyard or put something above their garage for like a mother-in-law suite or something like that. Keep in mind, so you're technically having a second dwelling on the property. That dwelling is accessory to the main dwelling and has to stay under the same ownership. The public utilities have to stay under the same account. The appearance of it is regulated by the zoning code to where it has to have the look and character of the neighborhood. So it doesn't have to be matchy-matchy to the main house, but it can't detract from the houses around there. It has to look like it fits in with the dwellings around there. And it's limited to just one per lot. So that's what the accessory apartment is, keeping in mind that those lots that are currently zoned TF3 2-family, individuals could come in, buy the lot and build a duplex. So you're already on 65 of the lots, 2 dwellings are permitted and they're not accessory to each other. They could be each side can be owned by somebody separate. So just something to keep in mind. Again, accessory apartments can be possible in this type of situation if the zoning remains the same. Each individual lot owner would have to seek their own conditional use. What Mr. Russell's looking at doing is kind of doing the heavy work ahead of them by doing it all for the 172 lots to provide people the option. It's not something where he's going to be building 172 houses that have an additional apartment in them. He's using it as a marketing tool to say, hey, come buy one of my lots. I have a floor plan option with this apartment built in if you want to choose that one. Or you can choose a different floor plan that doesn't have one of these at all. So that's kind of his thing. So the understanding of the number of accessory apartments going to be built, there's really no science behind it, but just from what we've seen in Wichita over the last 5 years, we maybe have gotten 3 to 5 applications a year for an accessory apartment. And so it's not something that seems to be super prevalent of somebody wanting to just come in and quote unquote double the density within this area. Again, he's just looking at providing somebody the option to do it. The second thing, again, they're mutually exclusive. You don't have to have the accessory apartment to do the home occupation. Home occupations are permitted within SF5 and TF3 zoning. The zoning code regulates that. This PUD regulates and is not differing in terms of what types of home occupations are permitted. Typical home occupations that you can see in this type of zoning are office-based things. You have a sales company and you office out of your home, and you can sell some things, but not necessarily on a retail basis. You know, it doesn't mean somebody might not come and stop by and pick something up, but you don't necessarily have a retail store out of your house. Obviously, like a beauty salon, barbershop, daycare, things like that. None of the types of home occupations are changing. What he is requesting is, as in SF5 zoning, you're not allowed to have any non-resident employees if you have a home occupation. So if you run a daycare, you have to run it with yourself or anybody else who lives in your home. You can't have somebody come from outside who lives somewhere else to run your daycare with you. In TF3 zoning, the two-family zoning, you can have one non-resident employee. So for those 65 lots that are zoned TF3 right now, if somebody has a home occupation, they can have one resident employee. And so this really isn't changing that much of what can already be allowed for a portion of the subdivision. The thought behind this is, you know, you've got your engineering firm and you're now just really working remotely a lot more. And so you're going to run your engineering firm out of your home. You then can have like a colleague come and work with you out of your home, or maybe like an administrative assistant who offices at your home to work with you. So you have two people and the second person just doesn't happen to live with you. So that's kind of the thought behind it. And again, Mr. Russell's looking to kind of be sensitive to what's been going on in our world, where people are needing additional space to do something. You know, they can walk across a courtyard and have an office or a place to homeschool their kids. It could even just be a man cave, or maybe somewhere to put their aging parents in. A lot through this process, we've heard several comments from neighbors with concerns about rentals. The thing with rentals is rentals are governed by the covenants that are part of the Rocky Ford development. The city does not get into, at least the zoning code does not get into the enforcement of something like, is it home occupied, is it owner occupied, or is it not? And so when it comes to the recommendations in here, it was kind of talked on whether or not we could put a condition that they can't be rentals, and that's not something the zoning code is required to do. I've seen that Phil Meyer is here. He's with Baughman Company. He's representing the applicant on this. I believe in the Planning Commission meeting when this was discussed that Jay Russell is working on updating the covenants within the subdivision so that rentals are not permitted. And I'll let him extrapolate on that. He understands more of where that process is or how that's working with the applicant. But that was one of the main concerns, especially with proximity to the Air Force Base, that this is just going to turn into a haven for Airbnbs or just a lot of transient individuals because they're with the Air Force potentially, and just having a lot of rentals nearby. So that's the word on rentals, is that they're governed by the covenants. And if the covenants say you can't have rentals, then you can't have rentals, and it's all governed in the accountability is within the HOA and not the zoning code. So that's the gist of it. The other concerns that we have, and I sent them on to Corey, and I think he probably forwarded them on to you. One of the property owners to the south, it's kind of that sideways L-shaped property. She spoke of just a lot of trash and debris, and she provided the planning department a letter with some site pictures. She spoke at the Planning Commission meeting and provided her testimony with this concern. And it's understood that the majority of what that is most likely related to the construction of the homes that are going up. It's a very active development right now regarding the construction of homes. That does not condone it. And Phil Meyer, again with Baughman Company, took copious notes with this and was going to inform Mr. Russell of the state of the area that is to the south of them, to inform him that measures need to be taken to ensure that construction does not continue, or this does not continue as construction continues in the subdivision. So the concerns that were kind of raised were really not germane to the issue we have now, other than new homes are going to be constructed. And, the developer does need to take some action to ensure that he's respecting the properties around him by not having trash and things being blown around from the construction site. So, as I've said, Planning Commission heard this. Gosh, what date that was? I'm sorry. I have 3 of these cases I'm working that are basically the same. On January 21st, the protest period, like Kathy's case, ended last Thursday, or no, it's coming up this Thursday. I apologize. So what that is residents around this area, can file valid protest petitions to the city clerk. If enough are received, then when it goes to city council for final approval, it would require a higher majority vote than a simple majority in order for it to get approved. When Planning Commission did hear this on January 21st, they did recommend approval of it with a unanimous vote, 11-0. Again, the protest petition ends on Thursday, and it will be scheduled for city council within 2 to 3 weeks, for 2 to 3 weeks after that. I don't have the exact date written down, I apologize. So planning staff's recommendation is the approval of it, and there are the standard conditions we have for the PUD, that they record a certificate with the Register of Deeds. And what all that means is when somebody buys this lot and they do the title work with purchasing the lot, and even future home sales as properties turn over in the future, the title work will bring up that this is zoned differently than what is surrounding it. And that's basically some of the due diligence that future property owners need to understand, not only what they can do on their property, but really what their neighbor can do as well. So that as things continue, if somebody is building an accessory apartment in their backyard, that a neighbor, understands that that's actually acceptable to do in this area. So I'll stand for any questions right now. If you have any questions for me, like I said, I think I saw Phil Meyer here with Hoffman Company. He can delve in a little bit more kind of from the applicant side. But we'll leave it at that, and I'll answer any questions you might have for me.
So to the DAB, any specific questions for Philip based on what he's presented so far? And then we'll give Mr. Meyer an opportunity to share with us.
I read both the letters that were attached, and it seems like their concerns are much more than just construction trash. There's a lot of concerns in the letters relating to trespassing, related to, one of them mentions pumping water, and there's quite a few concerns in those letters besides just construction trash flowing on the property.
The construction trash and the pumping of water, again, were really related to construction issues. It's not necessarily related to whether or not somebody can build an accessory apartment or have a home occupation. Again, Mr. Meyer was going to be notifying Mr. Russell so that Mr. Russell can address that with his contractors. Regarding trespassing, again, not necessarily germane to what they can do in these properties. These are going to be, houses are going to be built here, whether the zoning is changed or not. And so trespassing is just something of individuals in this neighborhood, and the HOA can step up and take some action in terms of notifying individuals that, it's not lawful to be trespassing on somebody else's property. And then they need to be respecting the property.
So just to clarify, the subject of this particular, get the words right, PUD is to address the use of the property that's
correct
already going to be built.
Yeah,
And
they're restricting it.
Proactive, right. And it's a proactive move on the developer's part versus requiring people to make that request when those circumstances come up. And you said that only happens about 3 to 5 times a year across the entire city?
As far as we've seen in recent history, it's not unheard of to get a request for an accessory apartment. We just don't get them really all the time. And again, it's the majority of the people requesting them live in an SF5 neighborhood, which is single family. and they want to build a small apartment to, most of the time that we hear is they have an aging parent they want to take care of, or like a college kid who, you know, is remote learning and wants, you know, just wants their own space, just an additional
Sure.
space. Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't, it doesn't preclude people who were to purchase one of these lots from Mr. Russell from pursuing that if that was something that they wanted anyway. They
That
would
is
just have
correct.
to take a different route.
They would just have to do it on their own. Mr. Russell's wanting to do these for all of the lots at the same time since he owns all of them. The moment a lot gets pulled away from his ownership, he no longer can request a zoning change for that lot. So something to clarify, if the zoning action goes through in the future, as these lots are sold off, it's not like somebody can come in here and change the rules for all 172 lots again, because they're all under different ownerships. If
Right.
somebody would have to come in on an individual basis. So on the flip side, if the zoning does not go through, somebody can come in who owns one of these lots and go through the conditional use process, which is a public hearing just like this, to request an accessory apartment in order to build one.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I think I understand. I can hang on just a second, guys. I'm going to ask that you not share this right now so I can see the whole gallery, because when we're screen sharing, I can't see everybody. I have to keep scrolling. So I'm going to ask the DAB any specific questions for Philip. Steve and then Nazir.
Hey, when this case first came through for rezoning, I'm assuming it was ag and then they took it to residential. Was there any requirements for walls or anything at that time?
No, because we don't have an ag zoning, so the zoning around is a mixture of SF20 residential, and I believe there's some rural residential. Actually, there's SF20, limited commercial, and 2-family. And so.
But when they did the first one, it was rezoned to all the single and double, right? From something
Correct.
else.
And residential zoning does not have to be screened from residential zoning.
Okay.
So
I
a
gotcha.
wall or a fence was not
That was one
required.
of the things that I saw in some of the letters, that they were now demanding a wall and things, which again, because of the definition, they may think they're trying to put in a big apartment complex back there.
Okay, Nazir.
Thank you. Phil, I get what he's trying to do. It's a better marketing tool for him, and less work for the city down the road. My question is there a size limit on that accessory apartment? So can the accessory apartment be as big as the house, for example, or is it a percentage of the size of the house?
It's a percentage of the size of the house. It definitely cannot be as big. Height-wise, it can only be up to 60% of what is allowed in the underlying zoning classification, which I believe in SF5 is 35 feet. So 60% of 35 feet is as tall as it can get. I believe Phil was talking about, and he can clarify this too, at least in terms of the floor plans that Mr. Russell may make available, that they're going to be only like 600 square feet. If somebody were want to build one in the future down the road in their backyard, number one, it has to fit within the applicable setbacks. Even within their buildable area, there's a limit on how much coverage of building there can be on the property. So you can't, in SF5, you can't just have, you know, setback line to setback line of all building.
Thank you.
And yeah, and so they still have to follow all the rules of the zoning code. The PUD is written to ensure that, to make sure they're not just these gigantic additional buildings.
Thank you.
I would like to want to make sure you guys see Tim's comment in the chat and give you a chance to call that out if you'd like to. And then Nancy has a question.
Yeah, I guess I have just a clarification. So the SF5 that it currently is, and it's going to a TF3, in order to do that, like, do both things have to happen? The accessory dwellings and the non-resident employee? Is that all part of the same package? Or can they be separated out?
They're separated out.
They're separated out, okay.
Right. You don't have to have the accessory apartment in order to have the non-resident employee for the home occupation. Like
Okay, so it's really two different things we're talking about that we.
Right. The kind of the idea behind it was like, say somebody wants to use the apartment for their office, that could be a space this worker could come. They could also just office out of their home and the worker could come in their home and they don't even have the apartment. But yeah, they are separate.
Okay, I do want to give Mr. Meyer an opportunity to address the DAB. If you have anything you'd like to share with us to clarify on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Phil Meyer with Baughman Company, agent for the applicant. I think Philip, after round 3 on this will be the 3rd one that we have done together, did a fantastic job of presenting this. So I don't have much to add. The one thing that I have been telling the DABs and Planning Commission that I would reiterate, this unfortunately, the term accessory apartment leads you to believe that we're trying to build something we're going to rent out, which is not the intent at all. It's just a terminology our zoning code uses. Philip listed all the uses that we think this would work for. I don't personally see an increase in the population that lives in this subdivision based on this. If you were going to have your mother and father or your mother-in-law and father-in-law live with you, you were going to put them in the basement. If you had a college kid, they're probably living in the house anyway. This is an opportunity where you have a space separated from the house. That separation is just a courtyard, but separate it from the house so you can have, those individuals still live with you, but have the separation that many of them want or feel they need. And then this is a result of COVID. There are many people that are looking to take their parents and out of assisted living during this lockdown and put them in their house for a short term, or have college kids back and want space or want to give them space, one of the two with that. So from a zoning standpoint, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have on this application from the zoning. And then when we're done discussing the zoning, I'll be glad to address the neighbor issues that have been brought up.
Thank you. Anybody have any specific questions on the zoning piece for Mr. Meyer? And if not, then I would like for him to address the concerns that have been brought to our attention by the neighbors.
Okay, so the one thing that I should have mentioned on the zoning to clarify that Philip mentioned I would answer. So Jay is working on amending the covenants for the homeowners association. With that, those covenants will state in them that these accessory apartments cannot be rented out. They have to be for family members or friends, but there is no rental allowed with it. And we are limiting the size of these to 600 square feet. So the neighbor brought up several concerns at the Planning Commission and explained in the letter that you've seen. One was, and the Planning Commission, I got cold on this, so I'm trying to figure some of it out. One is the drainage, and I can assume that when we had to construct the required detention pond for this facility, we had to drain an existing lake that was there and reconstruct it to meet the standards for the detention requirement that goes with the subdivision. So I do believe the drainage problem or drainage concern and putting extra water on them was something that happened during construction while we were trying to construct the lake to meet the standards of the city of Wichita for the detention facility. I did reach out to Mr. Russell after Planning Commission and had a conversation with him about the trash problem that was mentioned. And I do know that MABCD showed up on site Friday and had conversations with several of the builders, and according to Jay, they were taking measures to make sure they got the trash cleaned up off of the site and would do a much better job of regulating that as construction goes forward. And Philip, if I forgot an item, or DAB members, if there's another item in that letter you'd like me to address, the trespassing. I have no idea if somebody has stepped across that fence line or not. I don't know how to address that. If it was, maybe somebody was walking there, but I really have no way to know what's going on there, and that is a policing action that she has every right, and will relay to the homeowners association that's occurring. Maybe they can let their members know that they need to stay on the property of the subdivision.
Thank you for addressing those. I do think that it's a good suggestion to the HOA for that area to be aware of what's happening, with the neighbors.
Right.
We all work hard to be good stewards of our areas and good neighbors. And so, if the HOA could take that upon themselves to address, that would be great. I just want to ask Becky or Corey, aside from the letters that we did receive copies of, have you received any comments or concerns addressed to either of you?
I did receive a phone call from a neighbor who was concerned that these would be rentals, and that was her primary concern.
I have not. I attended MAPC. I should have said it for the last case too and for this one, but I haven't received any outreach other than what was part of the packet. So thank you for asking. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And I did want to make sure that everybody saw that Philip added a correction in the comments in our chat regarding the statement about the protest period. It actually ended last Thursday, February 4th. So he wanted to make sure that you had that correction for your consideration. I will ask for any last minute or last, I guess, minute. Yes. Questions, comments, concerns before we take the recommended action or entertain a motion to take the recommended action. I don't see anyone from the public in the Zoom room right now to address us.
I have one thing just to clarify.
Thanks,
and something
Chris.
I saw in one of the letters was that I think there's just probably misunderstanding of what's being asked for. But just to clarify to Philip, this map with the roads and the houses, these are already single family lots. So the citizens comment about that the roads are already being constructed, but yet we're still voting on this, or the city hasn't decided. That's just misunderstanding that this is going to be a neighborhood either way. It's just what each lot is going to be allowed to do. Can you clarify? I understand that right, please?
That's correct. The full extent of the subdivision has been platted. The majority of what you see when I was out there taking site pictures, they are starting to construct the roads and stuff like that. It's like the next phase of the subdivision. It's 65 of them are zoned TF3 2-family, which can support single family or duplex development. And the back 115 lots, or whatever that math was. The back 115 lots are zoned single family SF5. And so regardless of what happens today, or at the city council, when it goes for final action, if this PUD is not approved or approved, houses will be built. It's whether or not they can have an accessory apartment by right, or whether or not an individual property owner would have to seek to do it on their own. And it will be a neighborhood regardless, whether or not this PUD is taken into consideration.
Great, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that and get it on the record. Thank you.
I'd just like to add that as someone who works in social services and human services, the options available to families to provide for their loved ones, I think is a good one. And I like to see the proactivity versus the, the burden of family members maybe having to navigate this while trying to figure out how to care for their loved ones. So I am in favor of the idea. So I would like to ask for a member to entertain making a motion to take the recommended action as articulated by staff.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Sam. Would have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, we'll let Steve get in there on that one.
Whoa.
So all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, thank you, guys. It's been a long night.
You guys.
And I think that we have come to the end of our agenda. The last thing is to highlight that our next District 2 Advisory Board meeting will be on Monday, March 8th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom, I assume, again. So unless there's anything else, I'd entertain, oh, Becky?
Just super quick, I want to thank Dee. Obviously, y'all can see we made the right choice for a chair. So thank you to Dee. Fantastic first meeting. And I know this was a long meeting, and Tim, they're not always this long, so don't give up on us. But thank you everyone for hanging in there. I have been told by so many staff that District 2 asks the best questions and has the most thoughtful input. So thank you to everyone for your time and dedication. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now
guys
you
for
can
your
adjourn.
patience. Thanks you for your patience. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
So
All
moved.
right, Sam and Chris gets to second that one. So thank you all so much. All those in favor
Yeah.
say aye.
Aye.
And anyone
Aye.
opposed, what does it say? Bye.
Bye.
Tim.
Welcome,
next
Tim.
time.
See you next month.
Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Corey.